Hey everyone, welcome to another episode on David Show. In today's video, I'd like to talk about one of the most important runs in Spider-Man history. That would have to be Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's original, I believe, 38 issue run. So let's get started, shall we? And yeah, for you beginners out there in comic books, if you want to buy this run, there are two options I will give you. You could buy an omnibus. I think this is better. It's more expensive, but it will come in a hardcover and one volume will collect all the issues. But for you that don't have a lot of money, you can buy the first two volumes of Amazing Spider-Man in epic collection form. Those two volumes, the first two, collect the entire Stan Lee and Steve Ditko run. And in a paper, what's it called? Yeah, trade paperback. But yeah, let's get started. I want to take a moment to go over the origin and creation of Spider-Man. Now, Stan Lee wanted to create more characters after the start of Fantastic Four, right? And he got the idea of a teenage kid with spider powers, which the editor-in-chief of Marvel did not like because everyone hates bugs and teenagers. Teenagers can't be heroes, but he did give Stan the opportunity to give it a try in the final issue of Amazing Fantasy, which would be number 15. So Stan Lee hired Jack Kirby to create a suit for Spider-Man at first, and well, he did not like the design. It was too bulky, too much like other heroes at the time, like say Captain America. This is where Steve Ditko comes into play, and this establishes how important Steve Ditko really was in the creation of Spider-Man. He created that classic suit that Spider-Man nearly always wears. He drew him as a skinny teenager instead of a bulky, tall adult. And he gave him the iconic red and blue suit you all know and love. And I gotta say, I love the design of the spider with the legs down. The eyes are really cool, and of course the web pattern. Now, they did a lot of issues on this run, so I'm just going to go over a few of my favorites, and a few I think establish what Peter Parker should be. Amazing Fantasy 15. We gotta start with Amazing Fantasy 15. We are first introduced to Peter Parker and his cast of characters, Flash Thompson and his gang of bullies, who constantly put Peter Parker down, his love interest Liz Allen, and his loving Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Now, after being bullied, Peter attempts an exhibit in radiation, and a spider crawls through this ray and accidentally bites Peter. Peter, feeling shocked and weird, goes outside and leaps just in time to dodge a car, and he notices he can climb up walls and crush a pipe with ease. This is where Peter goes into the wrestling business and beats Crusher Hogan, wearing a really normal clothing suit. After gaining success, he creates the red and blue suit and a pair of two web shooters. After a while being in the wrestling business, Peter sees a robber and lets him pass. This will be a defining moment in becoming Spider-Man. See, this robber kills his Uncle Ben, his only father figure, and leaves an eternal struggle for him. This is where Peter Parker learns that with great power, there must also come great responsibility. Amazing Spider-Man number 1. Now, issue 1 of Amazing Spider-Man starts in 1963. After the great success of the Spider-Man character in Amazing Fantasy 15, it was decided Spider-Man would get his own run. In this issue, we see a direct continuation of Amazing Fantasy 15, where Peter is trying to help his Aunt May getting money. But he can't continue in the show business and get money without revealing his identity. And also because of a newspaper editor for the Daily Bugle, fucking J. Jonah Jameson, has slandered his name. In the same article, Jameson tells people about his son, the astronaut, and a test flight. Peter, being a science geek, attends and everything goes wrong. This is the first heroic act of Spider-Man, where he saves the spacecraft and J. Jonah Jameson's son. After this, Peter tries to join the Fantastic Four in a desperate attempt to help his Aunt May get money. After a brief fight with the Fantastic Four and learning he can't get money, he leaves and is then disturbed by a Spidey Sense frequency message, and is staged for a robbery. Spider-Man is quick to learn that the guy is fleeing on a helicopter and follows the escaping criminal, who we learn is Peter Parker's first enemy, the Chameleon, and he of course beats him. Continuing in the follow-up issues, Stan and Steve Ditko introduce a lot of classic villains such as Dr. Octopus, Vulture, Sandman, Mysterio, among others. But I'm going to skip forwards and just go over a few great issues of this run, or arcs, that I think you may like since we've established what makes Peter Parker such an iconic character, and a little bit of the origin. Amazing Spider-Man 9. In this issue, we see Spider-Man trying to get prescription drugs for his sick Aunt May, where he acts out of character and swings past a robbery. So while Aunt May is left in a hospital, Peter is home alone. Then we see Electro robbing gold and escaping successfully. J. Jonah Jameson tries to get people to believe Electro and Spider-Man are the same man, and this is when Peter learns of Electro and goes after him, and is, well, beaten up badly. In his next attempt, however, Peter realizes his mistake and ends up beating Electro with rubber gloves. After this issue, we see one of the most iconic villain of Spidey's, the Green Goblin. Now, in his first appearance, he wears a broomstick. Oh, thank God they changed that because it just looks weird. Anyway, Goblin doesn't really start to torment Peter until in John Romita Sr. So let's keep going with more iconic stories. Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1. So, Dr. Octopus escapes prison and gets Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Sandman, Electro, and the Vulture to finally kill Spider-Man. Meanwhile, Peter is actually losing his powers since he doesn't really want to be Spider-Man and he's stressed out. Peter has actually also been late to school, so Aunt May is contacted, whom after discovering this meets Betty Brant at the Daily Bugle to ask for help. The Sinister Six were planning to target Betty Brant since Doc Ock knows she knows Peter, and this makes Betty and May lures for them. Peter arrives at the Bugle and sees this message left by Vulture, telling Spidey that the Sinister Six is scattered in 6 different locations with clues of the whereabouts. So we get one fight with each of these villains, with awesome panels by Steve Ditko, and Spidey of course saves the day and the villains are back in prison. Amazing Spider-Man 20. In this issue we are introduced to Scorpion or McGargan. Essentially, J. Jonah Jameson wants to create someone or something that can literally kill Spider-Man. So he gets McGargan into an experiment, creating a scorpion-like suit, making him much stronger than Spider-Man as well. So McGargan goes on the hunt for Spider-Man and beats him up badly. McGargan then realizes with this much power he can do anything he wants, while he is growing more animalistic and more wild and strong by the second. Now in the second encounter, Scorpion attempts to kill J. Jonah Jameson, but thank God because Spider-Man defeats him with some sort of luck, comic book luck I guess. Amazing Spider-Man 31 through 33. For my final pick, I'm going to go over probably the best arc Stan Lee ever wrote in Spider-Man. This is the Master Planner saga. Going over it quickly, Peter's aunt is sick again, and he gets Dr. Curt Connors, or better known as the Lizard, to help him. Connors informs him of things they need, and Peter goes after it, but encounters a criminal organization who work with Master Planner. Peter enraged rampages street criminals for information, and finally knows what to do. So he goes underwater and finds out the Master Planner is Dr. Octopus. In rage, he fights and the base collapses. Dr. Octopus escapes and Peter is trapped under rubble. Very heavy rubble, and the cure right in front of him. Peter thinks about the mistakes he's made. Uncle Ben died because of him. He can't let Aunt May die, because he wasn't strong enough. So with this motivation, he lifts the rubble off himself and gets the cure to save Aunt May. So these are some of my favorite issues of Stan and Ditko's run of Spider-Man. I think these issues establish the mindset of Peter Parker, his supporting characters, villains, and all that good stuff that make Peter Parker a great character. So I'd like to briefly talk about the artwork. I gotta say, while it doesn't age well compared to modern age art, it is good. Steve Ditko was a great artist and incorporated horror elements into this book. To exemplify the best art Steve Ditko did, I'd like to talk about the Amazing Spider-Man Annual 1. As mentioned, Spider-Man gets fight sequences with each of the Sinister Six. Steve Ditko does these great singular panels with Spider-Man fighting one-on-one against each villain, and it looks incredible. I'd also like to say that, of course, due to its time, it has a lot of issues such as corny dialogue and corny villains. Like earlier, Green Goblin originally used a broomstick. All the villains just want to rob a bank, no real elaborate schemes. The Living Brain is a fucking indestructible robot, and J. Jonah Jameson's robot to kill Spider-Man. Yeah, there were some weird ideas in there. But that said, this is a great run. Stan Lee and Steve Ditko really outdid themselves with Spider-Man, I think. A great character which anyone can relate to. Money struggles, bullying, depression, and last but not least, good art and great stories. I would give Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's run on The Amazing Spider-Man a spectacular 7 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, And if you like this video, do feel free to give it a like, comment down below your opinions and what I should do next, and maybe consider subscribing. And that said, these videos would not be the same without my dear friend Lemony. So go ahead and subscribe to his channels and watch his videos, because he really deserves it. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, David, and I'll see you on another episode on David Show.